Come on.
They're right there!
Let's go. Move.
Hey guys, welcome back to Choices Not Chances, and I got a good one for you today. Back in my operating time, definitely during 2010, I didn't know many generals, right? I still don't know many generals to this day, but one of the generals that I crossed path with in 2010 in Marja was General Nicholson. Larger than life person as far as I was concerned, and he was operating with my battalion commander, and they were conducting a Shura, talking to the local population, talking to the local leadership, and trying to, step into the next block of war outside of that first block. And never would I have thought that we'd come back around, but through Ron Jansen and publishing a book and a couple of other people, the network's been growing. And I have him on here tonight to talk about his career, talk about combat, talk about war, and talk about transition. So with all of the delays that I've caused in the past here, sir, I appreciate you being on and giving me another chalk of your time and coming out. So thanks for coming on.
Ryan, it's my honor. Great to be here.
Yeah, so just like in any other episode, I like to try to understand where people come from. And part of that is, where do you grow up? Who inspired certain parts of your life? And if we can just kind of start where you come from and who you come from, we'll go from there and talk about your inspiration towards the Marine Corps.
Yeah, Ryan, real simple. Was born in Toronto, Canada, which is kind of unusual. And my mother was a British citizen, moved to D.C., lost my father at a very early age as an infant. My mother moved to D.C. and started working in the British Embassy. So I guess in some ways, I feel I was almost destined to be a Marine for a little bit anyhow. My first male role model, of course, without a father, whether you try to or not, you tend to gravitate towards male figures. And my first real conscious, at least, role model was my fourth grade teacher, who was a male, which was unusual. But even more unusual, he had been in the Marine Corps and was a corporal, and Mr. Biondi, and had a pretty strong impact on me in terms of kind of what right looks like and what a man really looks like. And I just felt kind of a connection to him, and move on later, 6th, 7th, and 8th grade. My role model was a retired Marine Master Sergeant who had been in Korea, and Max Ducharme, and stayed in touch with him for probably 20 plus years after I left. But again, another very influential role model. And then I went to college down in Charleston, South Carolina, a little school called Citadel, and I had role models there as well, and one was a platoon commander at Incheon, and so I had I think at every level, it's kind of strange, but at every level of my schooling, from elementary school through high school, with Colonel Dave Rapp all the way into the Citadel, I had my male role models, and for some reason the male role models I sort of gravitated to had all been United States Marines. And so as I was graduating from the Citadel, I was determined that I was going to come into the Marine Corps for 4 years. And Ryan, I was graduated from the Citadel, then went to all the schools at Quantico, about a year of school in Quantico, and then graduated from Quantico on my way to Camp Pendleton to be a rifle platoon commander. Got married to my girlfriend from Clemson, and who is now still my wife, but our deal was, hey, 4 years. We're going to do 4 years, and then I'm going to grad school. And 39 years later, I actually kept good that promise and left the Marine Corps at the 39-year mark, just a little bit longer than I had initially promised. So that's kind of my background going in. I was an infantry officer for 39 years. Had the incredible privilege and honor to serve in so many different environments with thousands of Marines. And again, but it all really started with those impressions made by young Marines that had served and were no longer on active duty.
Yeah. It's interesting the guys that, different guys that have come on here, all of them, not all of them, a lot of the guys seem to have a story similar to that. If it wasn't a legacy family, it was they seen somebody in blues, or they had somebody that was an inspiration to them, or a net positive to their life that happened to be a Marine and happened to make that impact on them. And a lot of times at a young age, even 12 or before, a lot of people are impacted. It seems like that have come on my show. And I think it's pretty cool, just to delve into that a bit. I think it's cool that there is that esprit de corps enough to where when the guys are out and they're conducting their lives, whatever that is, in whatever capacity that is, people are still seeing Marines, and then Marines are still gut up enough to say, yeah, it's the best thing I ever did, and, highly recommend it. Not for the faint of heart. I don't think Marines lie about it too much, but they represent the service in a way in which those stories continue to happen. Why do you think that is?
Yeah, I mean, I think you're exactly right. And I'll tell you, as I got a little more senior, I understood and how important it is that General Krulak, who was a commandant years ago when I was a youngster in the Marine Corps, but he said the Marine Corps has 3 missions. And when he became a commandant, 1 is to make Marines, 2 is to win battles, and 3 is to return those young men and women back to civilian society better than we got them. And I just always thought, wow, I like that. And yeah. I think, if you think about the young Marines that go back, and again, 80% of our Marine Corps are first-termers. 80% of first-termers don't re-enlist. We keep about 20% out of every what we call cohort. We bring about 60,000 or about 50,000 Marines into the Corps every year, and I would say we'll keep 20% of those re-enlist. 20% of those that's full re-enlistment. And so if you think about the math there, 80% of the Marine Corps is going goes back to the civilian world from every annual cohort. Mm-hmm. And what are they going to do? Well, my sense is pretty damn successful. They become teachers, they become coaches. They small businessmen. Domino's Pizza started by a Lance Corporal. I mean, there's so many examples, of Marines, officer enlisted, doesn't matter. Marines getting out. The amount of Fortune 500 companies that are run by someone who claims the title Marine is disproportionate in a significant way, for the Marine Corps. So I've always thought we bring in a different breed of cat. Nothing against the Army, Navy, and Air Force and the others. I mean, I love the Army. I commanded an Army battalion in Fallujah, within the 5th Marine Regiment, and I had Army units working for me in Afghanistan, and I'm a big fan of the U.S. Army, but it's just different. And we draw a different kind of guy. The young men and women that step on those yellow footprints, they're just a little bit more type A in my mind. They want the challenge. They don't want the easy way out. Hey, give it to me. I can make your team. And I remember when I was a kid, the commercials, Marine Corps commercials were, about, hey, do you think you could make the varsity? It was, do you think you can be one of us? There was nothing about, hey, here's all the stuff we're going to give you.
Yeah.
We're going to give you all these great benefits. It was like, if you think you got what it takes, give us a shot. But, don't be surprised if you don't make it. And that was kind of that challenge that I think a lot of recruiters tell me sometimes the best approach is, I don't think you're tough enough. I don't think you're smart enough. And so we do draw a little bit different character. And I think that doesn't stop when you EAS, when you discharge. I think that persona, my 4th grade teacher did 4 years in the Marine Corps, but he just exuded a level of confidence, and there was just something about him that kind of caught my eye and gained my respect pretty quickly. And so I think I think Marines do exceedingly well in the civilian world after they get out. And I know so many of them that end up going to college, and they left college to join the Marine Corps, and they were not doing great in college. They do 4 years, 5 years in the Marine Corps. They go back to college and make straight A's.
Yeah.
I think that kind of reflects, who we are as an institution. And it goes back to General Krulak's saying about, hey, let's send them home, better than we got them. And because they're going to be coaches, lawyers, cops, firemen, small business owners, they're going to make an impact. And I think that's a great credit to our Corps. Absolutely.
I couldn't agree more. Now to get, I want to kind of go through your command, and you'd get as deep as you want, but I want to go from your first command, kind of through your career, so people know the depth of experience that they're listening to, because not everybody may be Marine. Ask some people Army, and I just want to kind of go through the different command levels that you've had, and then I may have a question or two on each one of them.
Okay. Well, I think as your infantry guy, you started out as platoon commander. You're a small unit leader. Showed up at Camp Pendleton in 3rd Battalion, 1st Marines in 1980. Had a 42-man platoon. I probably had 35 guys when I showed up. Now, Ryan, this is going to blow your mind. I had 2 high school grads in that platoon.
Wow.
And 2. And one of them had done a year in junior college, and everybody in the platoon called him professor. So it was a different world.
Yeah.
And they were good Marines, but I don't think too many of them could join the Marine Corps today. Mm-hmm. And again, not because a high school diploma makes you smarter than non-high school guys. You'd like to think it would, but I don't think it does. I think what it shows the Marine Corps is you can finish something.
Mm-hmm.
If you're a high school graduate, it demonstrates a stick-to-itiveness, if you will, the ability to finish what you started. And I think that translates well into, can you finish your re-enlistment, or are you going to quit on that?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
You're going to quit on that the way you left school. And sometimes people leave school for reasons that are beyond their control.
Sure.
Family, emergency issues, whatever. But I think the Marine Corps kind of went to if you're not a high school grad, we're not even going to talk to you.
Yeah.
And I think that has served us well. But again, in 1980, the post-Vietnam kind of sort of cloud, and gosh, who would ever want to be in the military? And of course, for our listeners, 2 years later, Ronald Reagan became the president, and everything changed. Mm-hmm. And patriotism came back. And by the time I was a company commander, it was just so hard to re-enlist your best 2 or 3 guys in the platoon. You had to fight with the monitors, to wanted to re-enlist. It was just so hard to stay in the Marine Corps. Mm-hmm. And so a dramatic change. And again, we have those inflection points after every war, where it's kind of service is not as honored, or service is not something that young people are really interested in doing. Mm-hmm. And luckily, after OAF and OEF, that has not necessarily been the case. COVID was a great interrupter for our recruiters, and God bless those guys. They don't get enough credit, of filling our ranks. That's some of the hardest work there is out there.
That's what they tell me. Several of them want. Yeah.
It's tough. I get a chance. I live here in Knoxville, Tennessee, and I get a chance to go see our recruiters, periodically, just going for a cup of coffee and, hey, tell me what's going on. Mm-hmm. Normally a staff sergeant and a gunny and a sergeant or two, and but these incredible hard work. God bless them. I served at MCRD as a series officer, and we were always very critical of the raw talent we were getting. But we never understood how hard it was to get that raw talent inside the gate and on the job. Yeah, that's right.
I never had the pleasure, but several of my friends, several of the people that I still keep in touch with had, and that's what they tell me is the hardest work they did in the Marine Corps, including war sometimes. So pretty wild. But it does as well, and it seems to be the same. Making mission, making numbers, and the quality hasn't dropped as far as I'm concerned. Just different battle space. Okay. So in company, I'm sorry, I want to just ask in platoon command. In platoon command, as a platoon commander, biggest lesson learned for you there.
You can't fool your Marines.
Sure.
And again, I had 35 two high school grads, but it doesn't matter if they're then or today. And I get a chance to go to Quantico even still today, Ryan, and talk to lieutenants that are getting ready to go out there to the fleet, and I tell them, hey, there's only two things your Marines expect from you, and they don't expect a lot, but they expect two things: one, that you're competent in your job, that you're not going to get killed, that you know what the hell you're doing, and that's pretty damn important. You got to be an expert at your job. And number two, that you actually give a crap about your Marines, that you care for them, that you love's a weird word sometimes for the Marines, but if the Marines sense that you're just a phony, that you don't have their best interest at heart, they'll sniff you out pretty quick. If they sense that you really fundamentally care, they'll give their life. I mean, they will absolutely. It's just amazing, and I've seen it in good units and not so great units. But those Marines, if they believe in their leadership, if they believe that those staff NCOs and officers, those NCO staff NCOs and officers absolutely care for them and are going to do everything they can to take care of them, they will do extraordinary things. If conversely, if they think the leadership is just doesn't really care, is phony, and they'll sniff that out, and that's where you start to get units with some really some problems. And so I tell lieutenants, hey, become an expert at what you do, study your butt off, be an expert, be competent, and care for your Marines. Good things will happen. You don't have to be the biggest, smartest, fastest, brightest. You just got to care, and if you do that, you'll be okay.
Check. Okay. And then company command. So your company command time was served how?
Yeah. So back out to Pendleton for company command, and I had, I was blessed. I had 40 months of rifle company command, 2 deployments, 1 MU and 1 UDP.
Nice.
And so incredibly blessed. Probably, if somebody asked me, what's the best level of command? And again, I've commanded platoon, company, battalion, regiment in combat, Marine Expeditionary Brigade in combat, division, and MEF. I still think the most impactful command for me, the one that I enjoyed the most, was company command, like company command. Because you got 180 Marines in the TO Rifle Company. Ryan, I knew every one of them. Yeah. I knew at night I could walk the lines at night of our fighting positions, and if I heard a voice, I knew that was Smitty or that was Jones or that was Tom's. You're around them that much, and I think it's the last chance, it's the last opportunity in command where you ever have that level of intimate knowledge of your folks, and that battalion command was great. I was commander of the Warlords of 2nd Battalion, 2nd Marines at Camp Lejeune. Loved that billet, but it's just different. At that point, I'm really focused on knowing my officers, my staff NCOs, and probably a lot of my sergeants and corporals, but not knowing. You're just not going to know every PFC and Lance Corporal in the organization.
Right.
You go up one more to a regiment. I'm a regimental commander in combat, and again, spend a lot of times out there on patrol with our guys, but you're never going to get that level of familiarity with those young Marines that you have as a company. So I think company command is the penultimate sort of grade and opportunity to really make an impact. And it's very gratifying to me. I got an email from a just the other night, and it's addressed, "Dear Company Commander," and it's from who was a Lance Corporal, but somehow we've just stayed in touch every now and then he'll reach out to me. But that's incredibly gratifying.
That's awesome. Yeah, that's very cool. And so, biggest lesson, even though, we went a little bit forward there, but yes, it's your favorite, and you talk about the, knowing your men intimately. What was the biggest lesson at company command?
Again, high expectations. I thought we had a high performing organization. I thought the company was really strong, and again, we had very few people, but between our UDP deployment and our MU deployment, the amount of folks that wanted to stay on extended, and I think that's, if you're going to look at an organization, and we saw it a lot during the war, where battalions, and you know this better than anybody, but battalions would come back stateside and just get a chance to catch your breath, and 6 months later, 8 months later, they're going right back into the fight, whether it's Iraq or Afghanistan. And what you saw sometimes was there were battalions where a lot of people had the chance to EAS, and they said, no, I'm going back. I'm going to extend 6 months. I'm going to extend 12 months. My squad needs me. I'm the squad leader. I'm going one more time. I got to take care of these guys. And so I think that's a powerful thing when you have an organization that really fundamentally believes in what they're doing, believes in their leaders. And if you get NCO buy-in to that, then I think you're cooking with gas. Things are moving along really good. So I think the ability for leaders, for staff NCOs and officers to really impact the unit and fundamentally create a character and esprit de corps in that unit that is unusual. And I felt like that we did that. But we worked hard, and we were gone a lot. There was a lot of deployments. There was a lot of field time.
Yeah.
And that's hard. Yeah, I'm really felt that the company command was a chance where you could do those things.
Check. Moving to battalion command, I'm not going to ask you your biggest lesson, but I am going to ask, as a battalion commander, what are essential points that you have to resolve in order to build a warrior culture within a battalion?
Yeah, I mean, it's a step up from company command. Obviously, you've got a sergeant major that you and the sergeant major are that team that you present together at every opportunity. And I think as battalion commander, you're now more focused on your staff NCOs and officers, and getting them to sort of buy into what you and the sergeant major are trying to do for that battalion. And for us, it was a battalion landing team because we were going on a MU. So now I had not just my rifle companies, my weapons company, but I had engineer platoon, I had an artillery battery, I had recon marines, so now you got you're bringing in a much larger, you're almost doubling the size of your battalion. Instead of 800, you got 1,500 folks, and now you're bringing folks in from a different culture. They're coming in from a lot of different organizations, and now you're bringing them into trying to get them into your mindset. So it's more challenging across the board, but you spend a lot of time. My sergeant major now, every day you're out with a different unit. You're pulling lanyards. You're learning. You're working with counter IED. You're always out there learning something new and spending time with those Marines that are coming from the battalion landing team. Okay. So it's an exciting time. I mean, I thoroughly enjoyed battalion command, and we got a chance to go into Kosovo. We were the ready reserve for Kosovo and all the crazy things that were going on in the Balkans at that time. And now the battalion went in. We trained in the Balkans. Never got shot at in the Balkans, but we were training in the Balkans, and we were the strategic reserve, and sometimes the operational reserve for had anything. Things had calmed down by the time we got there, but we were ready to support. And so for us, we were on a combat footing. We were ready to go. We were loaded for bear, and had we needed to to be activated for something, we were ready. But things had calmed down, and we never fired around in anger while we were there in the Balkans.
And what year was that?
It was 2000.
2000. Okay.
That was the year. The year was 2000. So the Balkans had calmed down, but we still were putting Marines ashore in Croatia,
Mm-hmm.
and as kind of the ready reserve in case things flame back up in Bosnia or in Kosovo.
Check. I just had a thought that I wanted to ask about. I'm not sure if we covered it the first time we talked. Where were you at during 9/11?
Yeah, so I was I'd given up the tank command, and I was a regimental XO, the 2nd Marine Regiment at Camp Lejeune. And I was actually at 29 Palms. As the XO, you're the first guy out there for an exercise, you're the last guy back. The exercise had finished. I was at beautiful Camp Wilson that a lot of your listeners will probably appreciate.
Oh, yeah.
One of the great garden spots of our Corps. I was at Camp Wilson, and we were washing down equipment because when a unit comes from Lejeune, you rent the Amtracs, you rent the artillery piece, you rent all the 7 tons and all the gear, and then at the end of the Mojave Viper or the ITX or whatever you're calling it, you got to wash it down. So we were on the wash racks. We had probably 150 man working party, and we were just cleaning all the gear and turning it in and getting ready to go back to Camp Lejeune. And then of course the 9/11 occurred, and of course Camp Wilson, we had no TVs, we had nothing out there, so we're all kind of running the main side, 29 Palms. Just trying to find out what in the world is going on. But I think we all fundamentally knew at that point that our world had irrevocably changed.
Mm-hmm.
And, I hope we got a lot out of that training at 29 Palms, because we're sure as hell going to be needing it here soon.
Yeah. And so how long did it take for you guys to figure it out and then kind of disseminate word that, hey, everybody needs to pay attention?
Well, you can imagine it's early morning, California time,
Early.
and it was actually our regimental chaplain who was going to stay with me till the very end. And again, we're talking about 150 guys at Camp Wilson. That's about it. And we had buses or whatever taking us down to the wash racks, and and we're counting gear and washing gear, and gear's being inspected, and then we started hearing about, pretty early in the morning for us, but we started hearing about a plane hitting the World Trade Center, and before long, it was another plane that hit the World Trade Center. At that point, it's just no way that we're under attack, and you sort of come to terms with it. And then, of course, I went main side, and there's 100 people crowded around a little portable television set, and nobody can really understand what happened. But there was realization that our world, the world, had changed on that day.
Yeah, and excuse me. For you and for people that are in your peer group at that time, how did that go? I've talked to a lot of enlisted guys. I was early enlisted, or enlisted because of 9/11, so I didn't really see the buildup or how things went. Was there a regimented process of, hey, we're going to war, it's a number of days? How did that go in the upper ends of the Marine Corps?
Well, I mean, there wasn't anything that came out within days or weeks of that. I think that it was just such a gut punch. You're kind of sorting it out, and but I think fundamentally we all absolutely knew that we're not gonna sit by for this. The U.S. we're not gonna put sanctions.
Yeah.
I mean, we're gonna go after some people here, and I think pretty quickly we determined that was in Afghanistan, and very, very quickly, it was Task Force 58 with General Mattis and 2 MEUs combined that went into Camp Rhino and started going after the Taliban really hard with our Special Operations Forces. But a lot of people forget it was Brigadier Jim Mattis with an East Coast MEU and a West Coast MEU linking up, the first guys to kind of break glass going into Afghanistan. Then, of course, There was a lot of special government folks there, and
Yeah.
and a lot of special operations forces in there. But yeah, I mean, the break glass moment was two Mews with Mattis going in, breaking in, and then they turned it over to the 101st, the Army there. But
It's interesting. I just had one of the guys is like plank holder at MARSOC, but prior to that, he was with Force, and he was with Force during that, so he was out on the Mew. 9/11 happened. They got back to the ship, and then he was the first Marine in Afghanistan. Period. Had him on the great stories. Just all the different perspectives of different people along the way is just makes for a beautiful picture. But okay, so let's go forward of 9/11. Your next command is the Warlords at the battalion level?
No, I'd already commanded the Warlords.
Oh, okay, my bad.
Warlords are 2-2. Next command was 5th Marine Regiment, and that was in combat.
Okay, let's get into that one.
Yeah, so it's now 2004, and I show up in Ramadi as the 3 for General Mattis, who's now the Command General of 1st Marine Division. And General Dunford was the deputy. Our Commandant Dunford and Chairman Dunford. But at that point, he was a 1-star. He was the deputy at 1 Mardiv. I was a colonel. And he asked me if I wanted to come be the 3 in Ramadi in 2004. I had been slated for the 5th Marine Regiment to take command of 5th Marine summer 05. So it's now spring 04. I'm on a joint tour, and Brigadier General Dunford called and said, "Hey, we'd like you to come be the 3 for General Mattis here in Ramadi, and you have to do." I was on a joint tour, so you have to do 22 months. You can't leave until you hit the 22-month mark. So I hit the 22-month mark, I think, in June of 04. July of 04, I arrived in Ramadi. And of course, Fallujah 1 had occurred in April of 04. Fallujah 2 would occur in November of 04. It's now July of 04, and we're getting ready for Fallujah 2. And General Mattis would change command in August. And General Rich Natansky came in to command the 1st Marine Division at that point. Again, I am slated to command the 5th Marine Regiment in summer 05. The 1st Marine Regiment is going to turn over in summer 04. And the regimental commander to be had to go home for a family illness. His wife was ill. So General Mattis called me in and goes, "Hey, you're going to take 1st Marine Regiment. And the other guy will take 5th Marine Regiment a year later. We're just going to flip you 2 guys out."
Mm-hmm.
So on September 14th of 2004, I took command of 1st Marine Regiment. And that evening got hit by a 122 round rocket and kind of pretty much woke up in Germany. Recovered from my wounds in Bethesda, and then got back to Ramadi on Christmas Eve of 04. And again, that next day, Christmas Day, we were in Fallujah. And it was a whirlwind, but incredible opportunity. So I ended up I finished that tour. The 1st Marine Division rotated home in March of 05, and in July of 05, I took command of 5th Marine Regiment, and we came right back to Fallujah for another year. So I had the great honor of commanding the 5 battalions that we had, plus an Army battalion in Fallujah. So we ended up having about 6 battalions under the 5th Marine Regimental colors in Fallujah from April of 05 to April 06. Oh, I'm sorry, April 06 to April 07. So nice. For that year. Yep.
Yeah, that's wild. And you told me offline or last time, let's say in our last conversation, that some guys back at home notated your length in command. Is that right?
Yeah, if you go to the 1st Marine Regimental Headquarters today at Camp Horno, they got the pictures of all the commanders. on the wall there. They get the command board, and they're all in color except for mine. Mine is in black and white, and instead of having the dates and the years, it has one day with the time from 0730 till so. And I can only imagine, that young Marines kind of walk down the hallway and look at that and go, "Boy, this guy really stunk, man. This guy got fired. It didn't even last a whole day."
And you said it was like a Chinese 107 or Russian 107, something like that.
It's a 122.
Oh, okay.
Rocket. Yeah, 122. You got 120s. You have 122, and it was shot from downtown Fallujah and hit my CP in Camp Fallujah. And on that day, we lost an incredible officer that was with me at that exact moment. Major Kevin Shea, promoted posthumously to lieutenant colonel, had been on the selection list. But Kevin had been a starting linebacker at the Air Force Academy, commissioned in the Marine Corps, was just a tough, just an incredible officer. And, we were together at that moment. What's really odd is that his daughter is now an Osprey pilot in the Marine Corps. And my son is an infantry officer, and they sailed together on 26 Mu just a few months ago. They came back.
That's wild.
Look, that is just really kind of gives me the chills to think about. But our two kids are continuing to serve together.
It's wild.
Yeah.
Huh. What was the biggest lesson in Fallujah that you guys learned? And it's probably hard to say one biggest, but what are some big lessons learned that came out of Fallujah? You spent a lot of time there.
Yeah, Ryan, so many. But I'll tell you one thing that I'm really proud of, and I talk about a lot when I talk, especially when I talk to the NCOs. And at the time, if you're going to be a squad leader in the Army, you had to be a staff sergeant. That was the TO rank. For the Marine Corps, it was sergeant. Now, you'll know as a 3-6 veteran of Afghanistan and Marja, when those battalions deployed, especially with the rapid turnover, when those battalions deployed, it's pretty rare to have a sergeant as the squad leader. It happens sometimes, but it's pretty, more often than not, it was a corporal. And what I saw happen a lot, especially through the middle of a deployment, the corporals, the squad leaders sometimes got hurt. Sometimes they just weren't the right guy. And a lot of times, my sergeant major and I were constantly going out on patrol and, like to go out with a squad, just kind of hang back and let the squad leader do his thing. And, well, I'd say 30, 40% of the time, they were lance corporals that were squad leaders in Fallujah. And you think about the incredible amount of responsibility that we as a Marine Corps entrusted, to a lance corporal, with phenomenal results. And I was just always in awe of, where do we get these guys? Just time and time again, young lance corporals as vehicle commanders, as squad leaders, taking 13, 14, 15 guys out on patrol, and having the wherewithal, the maturity, the knowledge to understand, number one, hey, what am I trying to do? What's my mission? But also the nuances of, running into, an Iraqi Fallujah police officer that is trying to, and just, dealing in that civilian population where the enemy is hiding in plain sight. Sometimes there's a firefight, sometimes not. I think a lot of people may not realize, but 80% of our casualties in Iraq and Afghanistan were IEDs. We dominated firefights. The enemy never really wanted to have a firefight with us because they didn't do very well.
Yeah.
And so they were, we had them, but they were increasingly rare. But it was the IED that was the enemy's artillery. It was the enemy's firepower that we were, constantly watching for and paying attention to. And in Fallujah, we had a problem with snipers as well. We didn't have so much in Afghanistan. We had some, but we had a lot of snipers in Fallujah. But just the ability to power down and give such broad and incredible responsibility for the mission and for the lives of those Marines and sailors. It was just always to me incredibly impressive. Whether it was a young corporal, a young sergeant corporal, but especially my hat was off to those lance corporals that stepped up and took on that awesome responsibility.
And it is an awesome responsibility, both in the good way and the bad way.
Sure. Yeah.
Train guys now and talk about those things. Just over at Lejeune training guys today, and it is an awesome responsibility, and they have to know that. And it's one of the first things we talk about is, hey, you're leading people now. This isn't just you. You're not just back at home. Your decisions are going to keep people alive, or they're not. And knowing that up front, having somebody tell you that up front. So, okay, so let's move on from there. Okay, so Afghanistan. Let's go to Afghanistan. You commanded a large number of forces in Afghanistan, and so for me, I have very next to no experience at the level in which you guys are dictating actions that are coming down the field, actions that are political, that are far above the fighting in the streets. I'd like to learn a little bit about that, at least at the Marja campaign, and everything, either left side or right side of bang there. How does that work at your level, and what are the most important relationships that you have to foster in order to make a campaign like that's joint, make it possible and make it actually successful?
Yeah. So after Fallujah, the year after Fallujah, I was selected for Brigadier General and did my one and only tour in the Pentagon. And so I was I thought I was going back to Iraq, and it's now summer of 2008. And again, I've been told, hey, you're going to go back to be the last ground combat commander in Iraq. And as a 1-star, there'll be a 2-star going. And as the overall commander, you'll be the ground commander, and we'll have an air commander and a logistics commander.
Uh-huh.
Okay. I just got back from Iraq in 2007, but got it going back in 2008. Okay, I understand. Things had calmed down considerably based on the incredible work of our Marines in Ramadi and Fallujah. And our commandant at the time, General Conway, his sense was the fight is really heating up in Afghanistan. That's where the Marines need to be.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to turn Iraq. I'd like to turn Iraq over to the Army, and we're gonna get out of there and we're gonna go to Afghanistan. So got it. We're gonna be the last Marine unit. It was 2nd Marine Division forward going in, and then we were going to turn it over to the Army. I went on a site survey, went back to Fallujah, went back to Ramadi, and we were there for a week or two. And there was some whispers that I got from one of the senior officers said, "I don't think you're going here. I think you're going somewhere else." And so I got back to Camp Lejeune, and right around December of 07, no, right around December of 08, I was told, "Hey, Commandant wants you. You're going to lead the Marine Expeditionary Brigade. We're going to Afghanistan. You're going to start with 13,000. You're going to start with about 13,000 Marines, and then, but that's all. That's what you're going to have. And here's the units." And
mm-hmm.
so very, very quickly, advanced party was deploying in February, and we got over there, and this was going to be the first large-scale deployment of Marines to Afghanistan. We'd had Marines, we had MEWS in there, we'd had Marines go in there and do some great work, but it was a battalion here, a battalion there. We had not yet sent a large-scale organization like a Marine Expeditionary Brigade into Afghanistan. So I was really honored to lead the organization, and I got up to Kabul on our site survey, and I showed the 4-star. I'm a young nugget 1-star, and I showed the 4-star on my list. I said, here's what we got coming. About 12, 13,000. Here's what we got coming, and he looked at the list. He says, "No, you're not bringing any tanks. We don't have any tanks here." But I knew that the country that we were going to go down, the area and the terrain down in Helmand Province was very favorable to tanks, but we're not going to bring any in because it sends the wrong signal. And so that was a head scratcher for me, but because we had tanks all over Iraq, that was not a problem. I don't know what the message was there, what the difference was. Nonetheless, it's the first time where I'm sitting with a 4-star kind of negotiating, hey, here's what the Marine Corps is going to bring. Here's what I want to do. And I remember walking in there and say, sir, General, where do you want me? He's like, well, where do you want to go? And so, we're looking at a map of Helmand Province, and we had the Brits in a couple locations, and we were in some other locations. And I said, well, sir, honestly, based on my study, I think we ought to go here, here, and here. And one of those places I wanted to go was Marjah, because I knew that was, a tough spot. And he goes, no, we're not ready to go to Marjah. He goes, you can go to these other places, but you can't go to Marjah because we're just not ready for that. That's going to be politically, that's going to be such a tough fight that we need to do some things before we do that. And so Marjah was considered to be kind of the worst place in Helmand Province. But we put battalions in Garmsir, we put battalions in Nawa, we put battalions in Kenishin. We had battalions all over doing great work. President Obama had a speech at West Point in December of 2009. And at that point, he says, we're going to surge into Afghanistan. And that's when I got 1-6 and 3-6. 1-6 and 3-6 were inbound to the MEB. And that now gave us the combat power we needed. I got extra aviation units as well, but that gave me the combat power and logistic units. That gave me the combat power I needed to effectively put 2 full Marine battalions reinforced into Marjah. So that's how that all worked out. But for me, it was ops normal. Instead of me talking to a colonel as a lieutenant colonel or as a lieutenant colonel as a captain, I'm now a 1-star talking to 4-stars. And General Petraeus comes down to see us and, hey, what do you need? And so it is not as different as you might imagine. It's still, people talking to people, leaders talking to leaders, saying, "Hey, are you ready for this? What do you need?" And I think what I got from our Marine Corps and from Army leadership, because at the end of the day, once we were in Afghanistan, we were all working for the Army commanders. At least when I was there. Now we would have Marine commanders after I left. With General Allen and General Dunford, but when I was there, it had been all historically Army commanders, and but I think everything I needed, everything I asked for, if it was in their power, they allowed it. They helped me with it. I needed more Afghan forces. I got them. I needed assault breacher vehicles, to break the IED belt that we had to go through. I needed Army aviation, because we didn't have enough Marine aviation to bring everybody inside at 3 a.m. into the LZs to kind of surprise the Taliban. So I got a lot of help, and either from the ambassador himself, General McChrystal, and the team. But that was a pretty broad undertaking, and we really didn't know what to expect. And as 1-6 and 3-6 kind of crossed LD and got in there, we're all holding our breath a little bit. We just did not know what kind of resistance we would run into. Yeah,
it worked out. As far as the plan was concerned, in my opinion, it worked out. Was there any difficulty in that operation, at least in the beginning of it, in the kickoff to it? Did you run into any bureaucracy or political bullshit, or did you pretty straightforward? You told them what you wanted to do, and then execute?
Well, the government, the embassy, and the ambassador, and Joe McChrystal, there was this government in a box. I don't know if you remember that term.
Mm-mm.
There was this government in a box sort of notion that once we got in and we got through the initial week or two and things calmed down a little bit, the shuras were going on with the local leaders that you mentioned earlier. There was the sense that we were going to bring in an Afghan governor, and there was going to be Afghan medical, the schools were going to open. We were going to, all the elements of government, the economic, we're going to build roads. So the embassy had all these guys teed up, along with the Afghan government. They had all these guys teed up to drop. All of a sudden, we're going to drop the new governor of Marja in there, and it just didn't quite. I mean, beyond our control. It wasn't a Marine thing.
Right.
It was beyond our control. It seemed almost a little. It was hard to figure that one because we didn't think that the civilians that resided in Marja would be very welcoming, and they really weren't. I mean, here we are, running and gunning our way into Marja, and of course, I think they looked at us in the way that we expected, not as liberators, but as occupiers.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it took a little while to get through that. And there was a lot of work being done by civil affairs teams to demonstrate, hey, we're not, we actually are here to help you and get rid of, because Marja had been where all the drug lords were. And I think, I don't know if you remember some of those mansions that we saw, huge, beautiful mansions, all drug money, all opium money and poppy money. And the people that worked in Marja were essentially all working for these drug lords.
Yeah.
And so there was a hope that there would be a more of a sense of liberation, but in a lot of ways, by going in there, people's livelihood was disturbed because they were raising poppy and they were making a living on the opium trade, on the poppy trade, and we went in and kind of got in the way of that and told them to grow corn and soybean, and I don't think they were all digging that, but we understood that. We understood that change needed to be made, and so I think that was probably a little bit of a disappointment. That whole government in a box, program didn't hit the ground running, and I'm not sure it ever really took off to the degree that the people in Kabul had envisioned.
Yeah. Let me ask you this question, and this is just personal from me. It seems almost like every place we go to war with, at least in my experience, obviously that's very small, but when we go to war, we leave the place better than what we found it. Does that not incentivize people to go to war with the United States? Or is that by design?
Wow. Well, that's a question. After a while, I went to Japan, and I was the senior Marine in Japan and in the Western Pacific as the MEF commander. Certainly, if you look at Japan, if you look at Germany and the post-World War II, 20 years after, the defeat of Germany and Japan, they're competing with us economically, selling cars in the United States, and we turned them into economic juggernauts, and I defy anybody to look at the history of the world wherever has a country been that generous and magnanimous in victory to rebuild their opponent and launch them off on a democratic. It's just incredible. I don't know that a lot of people don't really think about that, but leaving it better than we found it, obviously that is something we'd always like to do. And today Iraq is not great, but it's a hell of a lot better today than it was under Saddam Hussein, I think. And I still stay in touch with civilians in Fallujah that I got to know as a regimental commander there. And I'm getting invitations. Hey, come on back. Things are great. Come on back. And so I feel pretty good about what we did there. And even though that was, we paid dearly, for that and for those people in Iraq, the loss of life of American Marines, soldiers, sailors, pretty significant. Afghanistan, obviously, I don't think any of us are happy with the way that ended. But Ryan, as I told a lot of people after the fall of Kabul, we can't be responsible for what happens after we're gone. We can only be responsible for what happens when we're there.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm incredibly proud of what we did in Marja. I'm incredibly proud of what we did in Helmand Province. But what a lot of people may not realize is that 3 years after you left Marja, there were no Marines in Marja.
Mm-hmm.
We completely left. And my sense is for Helmand Province, at some point, when you leave a place that's not fully baked, where the Afghan security forces are not completely ready to take battle handover and
Sure.
say, I got it. You guys go home, we got it. Because that was the plan all along, was we were going to be there until the Afghan police and army said, hey, big brother, we got it. Go home, leave some advisors, but we got it.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that cake wasn't baked. They weren't ready.
Mm-hmm.
And Big Brother was leaving at a rate, and we had advertised it. Hey, we're going to leave on these dates, and we're gonna pull out of here. But I think incredible. We had a battalion. We had 6 battalions in Helmand Province, and by the time probably 3 years later, we had 1 battalion. In Helmand Province, and then we had none. We decided we were going to pull them all out. And it wasn't a Marine Corps decision; it was a national decision. We're going we need to stay in Canada Harbor. We don't need to stay in Helmand.
Mm-hmm.
The Army wasn't ready. The Afghan Army wasn't ready, and so bit by bit, the Afghan Army started to fail in a couple of locations, and once that starts falling, once those dominoes start falling, it moves pretty quickly.
Yeah.
And you can't resupply them, you can't support them. But at the end of the day, we're only responsible for what we can do while we're there. And again, I'm incredibly proud of what we did in Afghanistan, and that won't change based on how it ended.
Mm-hmm.
And so for veterans like you and me and every other one out there, I say hold your head high. I mean, we did a hell of a job there, but when you're gone, you're gone.
Mm-hmm.
And we don't make that decision. Our senior political leaders make those decisions.
Yes, sir. Roger that. I got one more question. This is going to be one of the ones that I have asked you before. Stand by just a second because I want to get it right. All right, here we go. This is from, I guess I watched the show, Gordon. What is the most important lesson from the GWAT era that you learned that you believe the Marine Corps risks forgetting as it prepares for future conflict in the Indo-Pacific?
Yeah, no, great question, Gordon. Hey, look, when I was a second lieutenant at Quantico, we were, if not forbidden, we were highly discouraged from reading any books about Vietnam. Don't read about Vietnam because that coin stuff, that counterinsurgency stuff, we ain't never doing that again. We got to get ready for the Soviet Union. Of course, it's Cold War, 1980. We got to get ready for the Soviet Union. That's the pacing threat. That's the future fight that we're going to have. You need to study. You lieutenants need to get your head in the books, study, and learn everything you can about motorized rifle regiments, motorized rifle brigades, and you need to know every bit of their equipment. You need to be able to identify it. We would have flashcards, with our platoons, and oh, that's a T-72, that's a T-62, that's a BMP, a BTR, and its main gun. We were so focused on that, but our leaders told us, other than stories about heroism, you're always looking for great stories about heroism and Marines doing incredible things. But in terms of tactics, in terms of how to do counterinsurgency, we were told, don't read about it, don't think about it. You're never going to do that. Mm-hmm. And boy, those chickens came home to roost because, before we knew it, during our careers, a lot of us, the Balkans a little bit, we had to focus a little bit there, but especially going into Iraq and going to Afghanistan. And then just really the war on terror writ large. I think that General Conway, our old Conway, used to talk about the two-fisted fighter. One fist I'm going to put in your nose and I'm going to break your nose. The other fist is kind of a hand out there. I'm ready to shake your hand or I'm going to knock you out.
Mm-hmm.
It's, no better friend, no worse enemy was kind of the mantra going in. And, down in Helmand province, and we used to talk about hunting and helping. Every day we're hunting and helping. And, and I think you got to choose. Okay, you're the adversary. You got to choose where you're at. Are you going to work with us? Or are you going to work against us? We're good either way. But, we'll come after you. And we'll come after you and knock you out. Or you can work with us. And I think that's a hard mentality for combat units to kind of grow into.
Yeah.
And it takes some time. So one of my concerns is that we learned so much in Iraq and Afghanistan. We learned a hell of a lot. And we're very good, Ryan, as an institution, at lessons recorded. I don't know how good we're at lessons learned. And there's a difference between lessons learned and lessons recorded. And I would hope, and I would like to think that future generations of Marines will be able to find and look back on what 3-6 did in March, or what 1-6 did in March, or what 2-2 did in Iraq. Be able to look back and see and learn from those experiences. What I'm really gratified about, and I know we're running short here on time, but I'm really gratified that there are so many young, former enlisted leaders writing books.
Mm-hmm.
Very excited about that. We've got, this one from Andrew Colville, the summer '09. We've got, of course, Ron's book, an otherwise healthy person, from his time with me in 124 in Fallujah. And they're just, it's good to see, young squad leaders and vehicle commanders putting pen to paper and putting their thoughts down. Because a lot of times it's just generals that write books. And okay, that's great. But I think those firsthand accounts by young leaders, I think is critically important to add to the body of work that we're trying to maintain and capture. Because right now, China's our pacing threat. I get it.
Mm-hmm.
They are the existential threat. But at some point, Marines, sailors, soldiers, and airmen are going to be back into a counterinsurgency environment. It's just a matter of time. It's going to happen again.
Absolutely.
And hopefully we will be able to look back on some of the things we did that will be helpful to them.
Great answer. So shout out to the guys that asked questions and that brought up questions that I should think about when conducting this interview. Sir, I want to thank you again personally, just from me, with your patience and with giving me a little bit more of your time tonight. I appreciate your career. It's something that as I do this show and as I talk to people, there's so much experience that gets maybe overshadowed in the world, from both the enlisted side and the officer side, of people that you see daily in the beach, daily in the grocery stores, that are giants of people, giants of human beings. And, that's what I like to bring out. That's what I like to shed light on. So I appreciate what you've done for this country. I appreciate what you've done for the Marine Corps, and I appreciate now what you've done for me, in another light. So, if there's any way I can ever help you, need something, you let me know. And if not, I hope you have the good rest of your life. I hope that your foundations and your different communities and your 501s that you are helping out with continue to thrive. And I will add that information where people can find out what you're into the description. So I appreciate it, and thank you.
Ryan, thank you, and thanks for doing this podcast. Again, just like writing books and recording your data, I think what you're doing is important, and I'm sure you have a fascinating lineup of individuals that I'd like to check out. Every Marine has a story. Every Marine, we got 180,000 Marines today, and they all joined for some similar reasons, but everyone is unique. Everyone has their own story.
Yes,
and most of them are pretty damn interesting.
In terms almost all of them.
They really are. They really are.
Yes,
and so I think your ability to capture some of these experiences of Marine sailors, soldiers, airmen, diplomats, I think that's incredible. So keep doing what you're doing. And again, good luck to you in the future, and hopefully we can stay in touch.
Absolutely, sir. I'd appreciate that. All right, guys, that's all we got for Choices, Not Chances this time. And like every other time, if you see something that resonated within you or that you know needs to be shared out to somebody you know or somebody in the community, we ask that you don't be selfish with the information. Share it out. And until next time, stay classy.
Come on.
They're right there!
Let's go. Move, 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 move.